historic civil rights group is leaving a permanent mark on Chapel Hill.
It's still a waiting game for undocumented students in the U.S. We talked to a Carolina student about her uncertain future.
A UNC student opens up about his battle with cancer and how Kobe Bryant helped him through it.
From the UNC Hussman School of Journalism and Media, connecting Carolina's campus and community, this is Carolina Week.
Good afternoon and welcome to Carolina Week. I'm Patsy Montesinos.
And I'm Peyton Tyson. Let's get right to our top story. The town of Chapel Hill is preparing for the 60th anniversary of a historic event in the civil rights movement. Reporter Melissa RADEMAKER joins us live from West Franklin Street with the details. Melissa?
I'm standing in front of what's now the West End Wine Bar, but in 1960 this was the Colonial Drugstore, where 9 young African-American men staged a sit-in that sparked a civil rights movement here in Chapel Hill. Known as the Chapel Hill 9, these men took a seat at a booth inside the drugstore and asked to be served, just like the white customers. Last year, the town dedicated this site by placing stones on the future location of a marker honoring the Chapel Hill 9. The men were all teenagers attending Chapel Hill's all-black Lincoln High School at the time of the sit-in. They were arrested that day for their efforts, but sparked a movement and further demonstrations, and eventually led to the desegregation of Chapel Hill. Now later this week on Friday at 4 p.m., the town will again gather here to officially commemorate this historic event with this monument. There will be a 30-minute ceremony before the official unveiling, with speakers performing poetry and describing the documentation of the civil rights movement here in Chapel Hill. West Franklin Street will be closed from Roberson Street to Keenan Street, starting at 3:30 p.m. and is expected to reopen at 5 p.m. Live in Chapel Hill, Melissa RADEMAKER, Carolina Week.
For 5 years, the DACA program has allowed nearly 80,000 people to live in the United States without fear of deportation. But that could soon change.
UNC DACA student Yatsiri Perez says she constantly has to think about her immigration status.
It definitely makes me worry because I'm supposed to graduate in 2 years, and then after that I want to go to med school, but then I don't know how I would go about doing that if they do cancel DACA.
Freshman Perez was brought by her parents when she was just 2 years old, but never felt like an outsider until a school trip to the Galapagos Island in 8th grade.
I talked to my dad, and I gave him the permission slip form and everything, and he sat down with me. He was like you can't go. That's not possible because you don't have papers. You can't come back. And so that just broke my heart completely.
Mi Pueblo rallied students to write letters to elected officials urging them to support DACA.
You need a support system and people to actually understand and to be able to rally behind you and your community, not just say, oh yeah, we support you, but then where are the resources, where's the help, where are those voices that are really uplifting?
Perez says being surrounded by supportive people who look like her is important.
I know people who are in Mi Pueblo, and I feel better. I guess I feel safer or more understood, even if I don't even talk to them. I'm still they get me.
Perez told me this semester she's been meeting with faculty to share her story and to help them use more inclusive language in the classroom. It's part of a partnership through Undaco, Carolina.
Super Tuesday is the day that most Americans get to vote in the primary election. This year, all eyes are on the Democratic Party as they choose the candidate who will take on President Donald Trump. Reporter Grace Wilson found out how UNC students are participating in the Democratic primary.
In the 2020 election, 1 in 10 voters are expected to be ages 18 to 23. So what are young voters looking for in a Democratic candidate?
Somebody who's just a little different, someone who's going to be different from, the types of people who middle-aged folks are choosing. So certainly Bernie Sanders is the most different.
UNC political science professor Mark Hetherington says young people are particularly enthusiastic about Sanders because he has addressed issues that students really care about, like student debt and environmental policy.
Candidates that talk about those types of things will attract the support of young people.
Some UNC students are actively endorsing specific Democratic candidates through groups like Students for Warren and Carolina Students for Bernie. The president of UNC Young Democrats says it's most important that the end result of the 2020 election is a Democratic winner.
I think a lot of what our role on campus will be is uniting everyone and saying, all right, even though your candidate is not at the top of the ticket, we need to be voting blue regardless of the situation. Because ultimately, like, the end goal is taking out President Donald Trump out of office.
You know, the Democrats aren't that different from each other, actually. They have much more in common with each other than any of them have with Donald Trump.
But Professor Hetherington warns that young people's preferences will not be heard if students don't participate in the primaries.
Your generation seems to have especially strong negative feelings towards the sitting president. Those feelings hardly matter if, you know, all you do is write about him on social media. You know, the only way that they matter in the political sphere is if you come out to vote.
Early voting is still underway and primary election day is March 3rd. Reporting in Chapel Hill, I'm Grace Wilson, Carolina Week.
You can vote on campus at the Sonia B. Hayes Stone Center next week.
East Rosemary Street in Chapel Hill may soon have a different look. Grub Properties, a Charlotte-based company, recently submitted a plan to the Chapel Hill Town Council that would add a 200,000 square foot office building, a larger parking structure, and new green spaces to downtown. These new structures would replace the existing Wallace and Rosemary parking decks, as well as the Rosemary Columbia parking lot.
1 in 4 college students struggles with an eating disorder, and one club is fighting the stigma this National Eating Disorder Awareness Week. Embody Carolina hosted panels on fat phobia, dieting, and how to help friends suffering from eating disorders to raise awareness and provide resources for students who may be struggling. The group is also partnered with the National Eating Disorder Awareness Association for a walk this weekend. At Hooker Fields, they will take on money to educate and to help with prevention and support. That walk starts this Sunday at 9 a.m.
UNC's Writing for the Screen and Stage minor is still taking applications for its extremely popular and competitive 2-year-long program. The Department of Communication minor is an interdisciplinary program that involves taking English, drama, and communication classes. This highly selective program only accepts 18 students per year, and those 2 years, students can learn how to write both short and feature-length films and plays, have their work produced, and even get a Hollywood internship. Professor Michael Acosta says they're looking for candidates with a passion for storytelling.
Whether you get in this program or not, are you going to be telling stories? Are you going to be writing anyway? And if so, well, that's the type of person we really want to look at. Someone who doesn't want to be a storyteller, but who is a storyteller that just doesn't quite have the skills yet.
The deadline to apply for the Writing for the Screen and Stage minor is March 2nd.
Coming up after the break, a UNC student has developed an app that may change the way you get around town.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter, male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers, we have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
All right, crew, let's get started. Sure.
Don't ignore the law. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 days before any digging project so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811.
Finding time to go home during the school year can be hard, but finding a way to get there even harder.
But with a new app created right here on UNC's campus, one student hopes to make those trips a whole lot easier. Carolina Week's Amy Cochran has that story.
Then you just go forward.
That's NEHEMIAH Stewart. Stewart is an out-of-state student. Without a car, he can't always find an affordable way to get back to his home in D.C.
First fall break, as well as the first Thanksgiving, I was not able to go home.
That's how Vector Rideshare was born.
We're going to make an app for students and carpooling.
The app, launching last November, has 3 goals: safety, convenience, and networking. Vector Rideshare has a tri-vet security system, so you know exactly who you're getting into the car with.
You got to show a picture of your one card or BID, it changes different schools. And you got to upload that social media account. And then drivers go through their own checks. And each side gets a chance to check each other out.
Junior SHUGO TANAKA says he's planning to be a driver in the future.
It's just like an opportunity to make a little bit of money doing what you were going to do already.
Stewart says Vector RIDESHARE currently ranks 9th in the nation for student startups after competing at the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards in Silicon Valley.
It always just brightens me up to think, like, this is working.
In Chapel Hill, I'm Amy Cockrum, Carolina Week.
Stewart says in the future he hopes to team up with organizations like Mothers Against Drunk Driving and Live Safe to change the landscape of ride-sharing around the country. Can you believe, Patsy, it's almost the end of February?
I can, because spring is my favorite time of the year, and it's here this weekend.
Now let's take a look outside at those spring temperatures with the weather reporter Mihai Lukash.
Hey y'all, let's take a look at this week's forecast. Today is forecasted to be warmer than yesterday with a high of 67. Hope you were smarter than I was and packed your umbrella just in case, because there's a 40% chance of rain this afternoon, and we're expecting some scattered thunderstorms this evening. Tomorrow, we're expecting it to be sunny and rainless, but quite a bit cooler, a high of 49 and a low of 29. Expect that kind of weather to keep up throughout the weekend, with Friday, Saturday, and Sunday having highs in the high 40s and mid 50s, partly cloudy and no rain scheduled in sight. Just beware, Monday is the last day to expect that kind of dry weather, as the rest of the future week is expected to have plenty of showers, just like my tears when I look at my GPA. This has been your one and only Mihai Istvan Lukacs. Back to y'all in the studio.
Thanks, Mihai. It's the largest cultural showcase representing Asian Americans on UNC's campus, and this year it's celebrating its 30th anniversary. The Journey into Asia Showcase starts this Friday in Memorial Hall. Hosted by UNC Asian American Students Association, the showcase has different themes each year addressing topics affecting Asian Americans. Responding to the trending hashtag #OscarsSoWhite 4 years ago, the theme organizers chose the hashtag as one an American.
The issue here is that we find that Asian Americans often aren't represented as they should be in those fields, and we want to portray them and give them that light to represent themselves as they want to here at Journey into Asia.
The showcase will also feature organizations from UNC, Duke, and community groups from the Triangle area.
If you love giving speeches, you still have a chance to participate in Carolina's oldest public speaking competition. Tonight, UNC Di-Phi will host the Mangum Medal. It's a public speaking tournament that's taken place every year on this campus since 1877, and all UNC students are eligible.
It's a great opportunity for seniors, Di-Phi and not, to have their minute on the stump to talk about not only the things that they've experienced as undergraduates, but also to talk about what that experience has meant to them.
That competition will take place on the 7th at 7 tonight on the 3rd floor of New West. The winner will receive the Chancellor's Award for Public Speaking.
Coming up after the break, the men's basketball team looking for a victory as they take on NC State. Sports is coming next.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome to Carolina Week Sports. I'm Nick Perlin. One thing is for certain, no matter how much the men's basketball team has struggled, the Heels always have a chance to snag a win against NC State. In the first half last night, the Wolfpack went on a 10-0 run before the Heels put points on the board. UNC eventually got a groove going and went into the half up by 3. In the second half, the Heels led by as many as 11 points. As Tar Heel fans know all too well, UNC has often given up double-digit leads in the second half. It looked like that might happen again as State cut the lead to 3 points with 2 minutes left. But the Heels closed out the game with some crucial free throws. The Heels snapped their 7-game losing streak and beat the Wolfpack 85-79. To add insult to injury for UNC basketball fans, one former Tar Heel standout is continuing to ball out at the highest level. And after his record-time performance of late, fans will miss Coby White's afro even more than usual. White followed his career-high scoring performance on Saturday with another offensive explosion on Sunday. White dropped 33 points on the Wizards, which matched his career high he set the night before. He became the third rookie to score 33 points or more in back-to-back games, following Hall of Famer Allen Iverson and NBA All-Star Trae Young. White's Chicago Bulls are having about as much success as the Tar Heels this year, but performances like his last two have to make fans of Froby excited. Following the surprising series loss to Dallas Baptist this weekend, the baseball team returned to the Bosch to face North Carolina A&T on Tuesday. Aaron Sabato started the show with a hit that drove a runner in and proved to be more than just a single, getting another runner into scoring position. Max Alba had 6 strikeouts in his season debut. Tyler Cowsey closed the game with this rocket straight to right center that flew all the way over the fence. Third baseman Patrick Alvarez got the final out of the game. The Heels win 8-0. After the game, Dylan Harris and Coach Alba praised Alba.
You could always tell that he was a dog, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but even facing him this fall or early this spring, like, he's not the guy that you want to be facing out there on the mound. Like, he's going to come right at you, and everything you're going to see is going to be moving. And
the women's lacrosse team dominated third-ranked Maryland on Saturday, and one player is being recognized for her outstanding performance. Junior midfielder Scotty Rhodes Growney is Division I and ACC Player of the Week, following her role in the Tar Heels' 19-6 beatdown of the Terrapins. Growney scored a career-high 6 goals, which are the most against Maryland for the Heels since 1996. Growney has now scored 13 goals on the season, putting her at 7th most in the ACC. She and the women's lax team will look to continue their winning ways against UVA this weekend. 2 former football stars are taking their first steps towards the NFL at the league's combine later this week. Following their selection to the Senior Bowl in January, Charlie Heck and Jason Strobridge are the 2 Tar Heels set to show off their skills at the NFL Combine this week. Heck was a 3-year starter as an offensive tackle in his Tar Heel career and will look to use his impressive size and speed to improve his draft stock. Strobridge recorded 45 tackles his senior season and has already impressed scouts at the Senior Bowl. Both Heck and Strobridge will look to add to the long list of Tar Heels drafted to the NFL. That's all for sports. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Nick. Sports have always had the ability to change people's lives, but for one UNC student, this is true now more than ever.
Carolina Week's Kayla Boswell brings us a story about the students' incredible journey to overcome some of life's hardest tests with a little help from Kobe Bryant.
Stephen Ludwig loves sports, always has. For as long as he can remember, he has played basketball, ping pong, tennis, and golf.
It was a way for me to interact with friends and interact with the people around me. Sports also provided me with something to do in my free time.
But they were more than just a hobby. Sports motivated him to live another day. In 22 years, he's had over 30 surgeries and beaten cancer 3 times. Just 2 months ago, Stephen was diagnosed with Maffucci's syndrome. Maffucci's is characterized by bone deformities, cartilage growths, and a much higher risk of cancer. Stephen's most visible sign of Maffucci's, his left leg, 10 inches shorter than his right.
Now, when you find out that your son only has a certain 9% chance of living, for example, you gear down and you realize what reality is. Here he is, young.
At that time, the reality was grim. In 2007, he got sicker. Through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, Stephen met his hero, Kobe Bryant, at the All-Star Game in Vegas.
Sports and Kobe Bryant gave me this competitive edge to want to go back to school, to want to make more friends, to, to want to spread my positivity, and that's what I did.
At his best, Steven played on his high school varsity tennis team. After school, he hit the court with his friend Matthew.
It was really fun to watch Steve-O play because at first teams would really underestimate him. They would look at him and think, wow, I don't really need to guard him. But then he'd come down, start hitting three-pointers in their face, and they're saying, now we really got to guard this guy.
But at his worst, sports helped him get through and through.
So I found an IV pole and did a makeshift Nerf goal on it, kind of extended it out to where it was right here. There was a period where he needed to move a little bit, and what he'd do is, I want to practice basketball, and so he'd take those tissues and he'd just literally like that. And then we'd move it back a little bit the next day, and then the next day, and the next day. It's all he wanted to do. It's the craziest thing.
Now all he wants to do is use his story to inspire others. The same way Kobe inspired him.
I noticed that people are most inspired when they actually see me play basketball, instead of me just talking about playing basketball. So that's why I kind of want to do YouTube. I want to write, blog, do whatever it means.
Steven still struggles with his health and his diagnosis, but he refuses to let the situation get the best of him. Just like Kobe, his determination to win inspires everyone around him.
It's like he was given to us as a tool to grow. You just watch him and see how he manages it, and it gives you strength.
Strength he gets from all he's lived through and the way he looks at life.
I've never had an obstacle that I saw was an obstacle before I overcame it. It was more so another challenge. I accepted it really young, so nothing's really even been a challenge. It's just an experience. It's just what life is, and I'm fortunate every day to be here.
Steven, a first semester senior at UNC Chapel Hill, a multi-sport athlete and a 3-time cancer survivor. A former Make-A-Wish kid who has beat the odds and had more come true. His next wish, graduating college. Reporting in Chapel Hill, Kayla Boswell.
Such a touching story. I mean, I'm not the biggest sports fan. I watched the Kobe Bryant Memorial on Monday. I couldn't help but choke up. You watched it as well, right?
Yeah, and it's incredible to see just how big of an impact he has locally and around the world. And that does it for this edition of Carolina Week. Thanks for watching and have a great day.